Cordell, welcome to Beyond the Lineup. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Stoked.
Yeah. Before we even start, I just wanted to say that we weren't actually going to record this week. And then, all of a sudden, we decided to. And then the very next day, you texted me saying, hey, I'm around. Let's do this. So, how are you doing? Did you get in the water today?
Yeah, I caught a few waves at Trussell's. It was fun, and as it, usually is when it's breaking.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't crowded. It was like 4 people.
Were you at uppers or lowers?
At lowers.
Lowers. It's breaking this late in the season.
Yeah. I think it was good everywhere, kind of, because it's like west, southwest, northwest. It's just a couple swells, but yeah, always stoked when you get in the water, even if it's just for 30 minutes.
100%. Lowers, I would say, is your spot. What makes that wave so special to you?
Well, it's I think the speed of the wave and just the cobblestones just makes it so forgiving and so easy.
Yeah.
That it's like tide sensitive. It's just build your house on the rock, and when the storms come, it won't ever move, right? I mean,
right.
Lowers was born, I think, in '83 when the river mouth moved from uppers to lowers, and there was a big storm. And then it's just been great ever since, and I think it's not going anywhere,
Yeah.
Because there used to not be left.
Yeah, how old were you, or when was the first time you surfed lowers?
I was 14
Wow.
with Matt Stanley. His mom dropped us off, and we walked down to uppers, and it was a small day, and it was kind of not south. It was like wintertime, and we paddled all the way to lowers, and I remember going, oh, this is lowers, and I think it must have been, because I was born in 71, I think it was 85, 84, because we were 14. We're the same age, Matt and I. I just remember getting out on the beach at Lowers and realizing, wow, this is like a point, you could see the rocks and the sand, and I'm like, this is a point. And then when I got my license at 17, I started going down there, and I just haven't stopped ever since.
Yeah, it's an incredible wave. I was wondering if you ever surfed it back in the day. Mike Cruikshank was telling me old stories about how he would go down there back when there was the army base on there, and he'd get chased out by the Marines at Lowers. Yeah. They would shoot I forgot what kind of, the BB guns at them.
Bullets.
And the rubber bullets. And he was telling me when he'd get down there, he'd get dropped off, and him and his buddies would run out just to get to the water as fast as they could, because the Marines would chase them.
It was illegal to surf there.
It was?
Yeah. And guys, they would steal your boards, and this is before my time.
Okay.
So I started in 80, in the mid 80s to late 80s is when I really started, and then got really hooked in the 90s,
That wave is so addictive.
Yeah, I know.
Because it is so forgiving and so rippable.
Somebody needs to make a wave pool at that pace and try to mimic how easy it is.
Yeah, that would be incredible.
Because all the wave pools are fast, but if they can make it a little bit more like Trussell's, it'd be awesome.
A fun fact, I've never been to a wave pool, so I don't know, unfortunately, what you're talking about. But have you been up to Kelly's wave pool? Is that kind of what you're referencing?
Yeah, that, and just in general, it just looks like they're pretty fast,
It does. So yeah, you're a familiar face both in Newport and in San Clemente. What's it like balancing, I would say, between the two surf towns? Because they're, as much as they're surf towns, they're both very different, I would say. So what's your take on San Clemente versus Newport?
Well, I was born in Newport and kind of learned to surf there. I started when I was 9. And I just, that was all I knew, It was awesome. Peaks, beach break, really fun. And then when I was 13, I moved to Laguna Hills, and that's when I started surfing Salt Creek and kind of got a different taste of the coast and 30 minutes drive, before the toll road. And it's just been cool because the waves are fun,
Yeah.
They break all year round, and it's good. I mean, I think Newport used to be better when I was in the 90s and when I was younger. I think after 2000, something with the sand and even the storms, it just seems like Trussell's has been, I think, great. A lot more swells break there. But Newport, the sand is just, it's shore break, and it's walled, and it's not like it used to be. It used to be peaks all year round.
Are you kidding me?
And not super close to the shore.
Wow, that's so interesting. I feel like the waves have been, I don't want to say the waves have been getting worse, but it's super interesting. Like certain spots I feel like have been getting a lot worse. I don't know if that's related to coastal like erosion, but even like in Malibu, for example, the point has just gotten so much shorter and the wave just doesn't break the way that it used to before. Yeah, it's super interesting to see like some of the best waves in the world just like not breaking the way that they used to.
Malibu's an incredible wave. I remember I surfed there a little bit in the 90s during those PSA contests, and it was just perfect. Better than the rates at Trestles, you know.
Are you kidding? Wow.
Yeah, I think it still is really good.
Yeah, it's still a good wave, but yeah, it definitely has gotten like a lot shorter. Just like the sand has just completely shifted with like the river mouth running out.
Has Malibu always been that crowded? Even like since back in the day?
It's such a Hollywood thing, right?
Is it?
You know? Yeah, I think so many. I mean, it's beautiful, but yeah. I think there's a few spots up there that break on South Swells, but it has to be big, you know?
Yeah, I was wondering, have you ever surfed Killer Dana before the harbor was there? I always hear people talking about that wave and like the old photos.
That was in the
like,
60s.
The perfect right point. Yeah.
You know, I think that's for guys that are in their 60s and 70s, you know.
Wow.
I'm already 53 and I never saw it, you know.
Wow.
I was the Salt Creek was before the grass and before even the trail, I think. You just to walk down
That's crazy.
the hill. It was a hill. Bunch of plants. And
I bet the wave was better back then too, right?
I don't know. I mean, the pictures, I think that wave stayed pretty consistent. I don't think the sand has moved that much. But it seemed as if it was always a little different because the sand moves a lot there.
Yeah. It's kind of like been a consistent thing where like all beach breaks have changed, at least drastically within like the past like 10 years. Because even like I remember, and I'm not that old, I would say. Like I've only been surfing for 10 years.
Yeah.
And I've used to surf like all the beach breaks in San Clemente, and it'd always be peaky and fun, kind of how you were describing Newport.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, now there's no sand. But luckily, there is a project going on right now that's bringing back the sand that I'm sure you've seen.
Yeah, in San Clemente, right?
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
It sure looked good next to the pier there for this winter, huh? I remember it's just perfect.
No, seriously, yeah.
It was incredible. I never went down there, but I wish I would.
There's a couple days that were like, wow, like
just
the sand's back.
Like Trestles, but with power, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, it's not rocket science to make a wave better. You know, you just move sand.
And also just bringing back the beaches. You can already tell there's a huge drastic change between like a year ago and today.
Yeah.
There's so much more sand, almost like 50 yards more of sand.
Yeah.
And the waves are better. People are happier.
Yeah. I know.
Right?
I know. It'll be cool when each town can kind of say, okay, let's do this, and they'll make money. Right? They could charge people to surf a better wave. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Well, anyways, I really want to dive into your surfing journey. I wanted to know, when did you start competing, and when did you get onto Quiksilver? How did that all happen?
So I went to Cordell Miller High School in 7th grade, and I didn't make the team the first year. And then I moved, and then I came back halfway through 8th grade. And then I made the team kind of, but I was just not really somebody that competed in the contests, I think, for another year, because I was kind of a later learner, you know? Mm-hmm. And then Quiksilver used to have these workouts at 54th Street. And Danny Kwok and Preston and Paul Gomez and all those legends, they would let me and some of my friends compete in them. And I just was at the right place at the right time, and they sponsored me, and it was really awesome. It's really cool. I had a great time with Quiksilver for quite a while.
Well, that's
and
awesome.
Danny and I are still friends, and we talk, and he's really supportive, and
that's super cool. Yeah. How long were you on their team for, and did you get to go on any team trips?
Yeah. I remember kind of really being sponsored when I was 15 and 16 and 17. When I was 17, they put me in the magazine, and I went to England and France and traveled, and it was amazing. I was like, it was so cool. Jeff Booth was my chaperone.
No way. That's awesome. Well, we're just around the corner from Jeff Booth. I went to high school with his daughter. He's awesome. He's awesome. Yeah. If you paddle out at Brook Street, like, he's the guy to look out for. He has a super sick style.
He was super good. And Todd Miller was like my older brother, sensei guy. And he kind of took me under his wing and let me hang out with him. And he was like doing really well as a competitive surfer then. And he was like on Quiksilver, and it was seriously like some of the best time of my life, really. And then I started shaping, and it just got better, and I was stoked I didn't have to compete and travel, and I got to just make boards and I was my own boss, so it's kind of cool.
That's killer.
Yeah.
What do you think the difference is today between like a Quiksilver sponsored Grom versus like back in the day when you were on Quiksilver?
I know there's a lot more talent now, and there's a lot more better surfers because, parents are smart and they're like, I want my kid to get into it earlier and maybe he can make it big, and so it's there's more talent now. Surfing's more competitive, and because of that, it's harder to get sponsored. There's a lot of great surfers that aren't sponsored. Even on tour, right?
Yeah.
So I think hopefully with the wave pools and people like yourselves, people that are passionate about surfing, that love surfing, that come from here, that have the resources to help. I'm excited to see where surfing's going, from moving sand to artificial reefs, eco-friendly, hopefully, obviously.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it wouldn't work. But surfing's just kind of taking over the world one wave pool at a time.
Yeah, it's definitely spreading the love, I feel like.
And the joy of being able to ride waves and be with your friends, and it's like a party.
But you started shaping, I know, like in the 1990s. I remember you were writing for Xanadu back then, correct? I was wondering how you got into shaping. Like, what inspired you to shape your first board?
I was, because Quiksilver put me in the magazine, like some shapers were more apt to give me boards. So I was kind of like, hey, like a kid in a candy shop, like I was getting Greg Pouch's boards from McCoy. And I got some Mark Pesha's, and I got Xanadu, and I wasn't really writing for Xanadu. He just gave me some deals. And at that point, that was when the first Xanadu I got, he was the first guy that put more rocker in his boards with more concave. And Gerlach was just like one of my few idols at the time. I mean, or everybody's idol. Me and Matt Patterson and Steamer and
he's my idol too, so I'm right there with you.
No, well, Gur is, he's just amazing. He's super outgoing and radical, and he was like, him and Archie and Curran were like my main favorites.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And, so he was ripping on these Xanadus. I'm like, I want to try one, so I got one, and it was really good. The board had 2.5 inches of tail rocker, where all the other boards had 1 3/4 inches with V. So boards went from flat with V, boxy rails, to concave, more rocker, and it was a process. Mm-hmm. I wish, hopefully somebody will make a book on the evolution of the surfboard and how surfing evolved with the boards. But yeah, Xanadu was the first guy. I think he learned from some Australian guys. I think it was Weber, and loose boards that have more rocker just fit in the pocket, and they're super loose. But obviously you need a wave to stand up to be able to handle rocker. So there's a fine line with a board that works at trestles, and then a steep wave,
Yeah. Well, you ride quite a bit of rocker at trestles. You still make it work.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried to flatten them as much as I can, but there is such thing as too flat. They stick, they grab the face and they pearl. They don't, let you go in the pocket. That. But yeah, there's a fine line, and when you get a good one, you keep it,
Is that kind of what inspired you to get into shaping? Can you walk us through that
kind of
story?
I had a girlfriend, and I got my heart broken when I was 17, and I prayed. I go, God, I need something to do to get my mind off her, and I shaped a board, and it was like an answer to prayer. And I had a job. I had a bunch of friends that were broke that wanted boards, and so it went from heartbreak to happy making boards, and and so my career of shaping kind of started, and I haven't had to get a real job since. I mean, I'm obviously pretty poor, but fortunately my dad is kind and lets me eat when I'm hungry at the house.
Well, how did you first get into shaping? Obviously, there's a lot of learning that goes on behind the scenes too. Me personally, I definitely wish I knew more about my boards and how they work. But yeah, how did you learn? Did you have any mentors that were guiding you through the process? And where did you shape your first boards?
So Mike Estrada, you guys know him? He shapes for TNC. So he is a Quiksilver team rider. He was, I think, 3 years older than me. Mm-hmm. And he let me make my first board at his shop on 18th, which is where I'm at now, right next to him. So it's really cool how we're still there doing it.
Yeah.
But he helped me. He taught me how to like outline the board first and skin the bottom, and then take the thickness out of the deck. That way the bottom is true.
Okay.
And for all my first hand shapes, that's the way I did it. And I still do it that way if I hand shape.
So you always start with the bottom?
Well, you outline the board first. Mm-hmm. Some people will use their planer and use the whole blank length, but keep the outline not, basically open. Like, I have to kind of show you in the shaping room. But some people template it first, then cut it out with a router or a handsaw. I did both. But I would always skin the bottom so I don't mess the rocker up in the blank. Some people, you can chip and add a little and take away, but it's complicated. You can't add that much. It's hard. Some people are better with their planers than others, but I'm happy that the machine is there, because now the machine can do more than I can easily,
Like laser cutting, like kind of
yeah, like
perfecting
it's just the like a lot of the blanks, like Rusty and Rawson, they made the molds, and their boards were different than what Xanadu was doing. So you can do custom rocker with Clark foam, and even with US blanks and with Millennium and Arctic and stuff. But now the blanks are all so close kind of to what you want. Mm-hmm. Yet when you do put a lot of concave on the boards, that's something you got to do either with your planer or with your Sureform and block and stuff.
Does that mean you're using more foam, like when you're shaping, like when you first get it, since it's going to be more like...
Well, I always thought, and I kind of said, like, a blank is like a wave. You can only do what it allows you to do, Uh-huh. So like if your blank only has so much thickness and so much rocker, you can't change it that much, The machine's better at cutting a little here and a lot here, and then a little there, than you are with your planer. Some people are better than others with their planers. Me, I always use that little Hitachi, and I never had a skill saw, like at the big one, So, yeah, I mean, it's so much fun.
That's awesome. And it's so cool to hear that you found something that you're truly passionate about. And from a young age, you started shaping, from what it sounds like, when you were pretty young. So up until like today, what have you done to like grow your business and to grow your team as well? I've always wanted to know, like, as a surfer, like what goes on behind the scenes of a shaper in like building your team and like which athletes and surfers you work with.
When Quiksilver was putting me in the magazine, I had just more following. I was traveling, and I had quite a good thing going on in Japan. And so one year I think we sold like 600 boards over there, which is like what I do now here, So I've had, with the team, Burlak rode for me in the 90s, and that was like a dream come true. We traveled to Chile and Peru together, and Japan, and it was like crazy because I'm one of those guys. I'm kind of I just don't feel comfortable apart from my family. I told you I don't like to fly.
Yeah, you're mentioning
part of that really is just feeling apart from my family, I guess. But yeah. So Donovan had the second board I ever shaped, and I know I think he made the semifinals in a AS or a PSA event or the quarters or something, and it was just so much fun because all my friends were in the magazine. Conan Hayes rode for me after Gerlach, and I actually got to make some boards for Tom Curran, so that was like a dream come true.
Wow, that's so incredible. What was it like being able to shape boards for like people that were your idols and that you look up to, and what was that relationship like with them?
It was awesome. I it kind of fell through because the money that was coming through me from Japan was in conflict with his old sponsor, who was his friend, and he's like, hey, this is going to hurt me. And Tom's such a rad guy. He just goes, hey, I can't do this, And then I think Channel Islands, hopefully they made a couple models and gave him more money, because he went through a divorce and he had hard times and, lost his house. And so.
Are you still in touch with a lot of the guys you used to shape for?
I talk to Gur here and there, and we're gonna make a new board together, which is cool. You know, still the same. You know,
Yeah.
he lives in Huntington now, so
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I was just with him this morning actually.
Oh, yeah.
He's I'm into or joining like the Wave Key program, and
Awesome.
yeah, it's been super interesting just seeing like how much goes on behind the scenes in terms of technique. And yeah, it's just been super fascinating being able to learn from his expertise. But yeah, that's super incredible. And so when you're working on like creating a board with someone or shaping a model, like what goes on behind the scenes of that, and what's the process for that?
Well, I mean, you're a great surfer. You communicate with the shaper and you say, hey, it feels loose. It doesn't feel as drivey. It feels a little stiff. It does this. It doesn't do that. You know, so that language that you're trying to communicate to the shaper, hopefully the shaper understands, hey, okay, well, everybody kind of has a similar fin angle. You know, some people have a little more rocker. I look at Griffin's boards and Crosby's boards, and they're different, you know?
Yeah.
It's funny how, you know, I almost feel like some boards just work a little bit better in steeper waves. Some boards work a little better when it's mushy. And then the magic ones work in both, you know? And those are the ones you hold on to and hopefully try not to break.
What would you create someone who wants a board for mushy waves? Because I've always like struggled finding boards for smaller days.
Yeah. Just make sure there's no extra rocker in it, you know? And there's just enough. So I have a couple flat boards. We'll have to get together after this and we'll go down and
that would be killer.
try a couple.
Yeah, because I've always
the same size, you know.
Oh, I know. I was looking at this board that you have here. The artwork. You want to speak a little bit about it?
Well, my daughter is 15 now. When she was little, she just loves the color, you know. So I would always be like, "Hey, Ireland," you know. So this is one of the good ones and one of my favorites.
You've been in the surf industry, you know, for a pretty long time, starting shaping when you were around 19. And so how have you seen the surf industry change? You have been through like the magazine era, and now we're seeing a lot of companies going more corporate, especially in the surf industry. But yeah, I wanted to get your perspective on it firsthand, just seeing that change.
Well, I think the bottom line is athletes have gotten more and more money because they're the brand ambassador. You know, they're the guys that everybody's looking up to. So when they get agents, they get as much money as they can, and that kind of has an effect on the company, you know. So people give as much as they can, and then everybody has to kind of roll with the crumbs, you know. So it's gotten more corporate. It's gotten more cutthroat. It's gotten shallower, you know. Back in the day, it was so cool when Danny and Paul and Wolcott and all the guys, like Wolcott started Volcom, and he and I had our own handshake, you know.
Oh, so cool.
And he was I had one of his old McCoys, but I mean, it was just so cool because they were at the beach every day, and they were working with us kids. And now it's so different. Now it's just there's less of them, and there's more kids wanting the carrot, you know.
100%. Like, when do you ever see a shaper down at the beach besides like if they're at a professional contest, you know, working with like their top guy? Like, I miss that genuine connection that you used to see back in the day.
Yeah.
And
Matt's just so busy because everybody rides his boards, you know. Yeah.
The surf community is such a unique space, I will say. And you have your commercial business within the industry. Where do you see the industry kind of going? And what are your thoughts?
Hopefully it just, people will, I just kind of have this vision of the wave pools and then the history of the boards and the history of surfing and where it is today. And people can come in and learn to surf from every level and even special needs and physically challenged people, you know. One of my good buddies that I've been playing golf with lost his arm when he was 25 to a boating accident.
Wow.
And we got him a board with a handle like Bethany, and he taught Bethany how to snowboard when she was like 13.
Wow.
So his son's learning to surf too, so it's cool, you know.
That is a super incredible story.
I have this vision of getting my brother on a board and just big old smile, you know, of him, because he loves the water, but he's like 260 pounds and he's stubborn and he's strong and you know, but I have a lot of big friends. We just got to get him to the beach. So that's kind of one of my prayers.
What do you think the surf community can do to kind of like bring back like all the attention it used to get back in the day?
Well, the West Coast board rider things are pretty amazing because it
Yeah,
kind of
they
does
are.
that.
It does.
You just got to show up,
I know, it brings the community together.
Yeah, yeah. So that's kind of already happening,
And it's funny because it's the guys that are starting it are the older guys, like
Yeah.
from back in the day,
and they're
right?
competing, and it's fun. Yeah, it's awesome. So hopefully that at the wave pool, I guess the wave pool is coming to Newport, which
Oh, it is?
I know some people are bummed, but
I didn't
it's
even
like,
hear
hey,
about that.
there's plenty of spots for golf, There's way more golf courses.
Where is it?
And 18 holes, you kidding me?
Where is it going?
Every golf course should put a wave pool and then just do 12 holes.
Hey,
on a
I
wave
back
pool,
that. I love that idea. And now every single
And then you never want to leave the wave pool. The golf.
Yeah.
yeah, you go
I
from
wanna build a
golfing to
motorcycle
wave
track,
pool
have
back.
Just kind of like, hey, we don't need to go to the desert. It's all here,
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty good deal. You get a wave pool and golfing 2-in-1 for your club membership.
Why not?
Yeah.
Well, to keep you from having to ever go on a plane, because it's perfect. You don't have to travel across the entire Pacific Ocean to go find waves, and you might get skunked, and you spend all this money, you know?
Yeah.
So, have you ever, felt like maybe you were, missing out, not flying on planes? I mean, you were talking about going
I've
on
turned
other
down
places.
a lot of trips and totally have regrets and feel depressed at times because it's like I've stayed in one spot for so long, but I dream every day and I can't wait to travel. And, I've always kind of wanted to have a boat where there's a dozen shaping rooms and you can travel around building boards and surfing and traveling and giving back what we have so much here,
We seriously do have a lot.
So, that's one way. I know I'll travel, my whenever and however. That's why I take care of my temple so I can do it, when I get older.
Do you see, surfboards becoming more environmentally friendly down the line?
I know they're working on it,
What have you heard?
I mean, it's kind of like wooden houses. You take trees down, they grow, to what regard and what speed, Yeah, the theory of taking oil out of the earth at a faster rate than it's being produced, we just got to put our heads together and figure it out before it is, too late,
Yeah, 100%.
because, the kids of today are,
Yeah, it definitely is one of the bigger challenges that our generation's going to have to face. But I have a lot of confidence that we're going to be able to put some solutions together and figure some things out. And just being even at UCLA and seeing some of the pretty cool ideas that some of the students and organizations are able to come with is definitely inspiring.
Yeah.
But on the competitive side, I've always been super curious as to, I've had a couple of boards where I feel like every surfer has this, where it's like, this is your magic board, and you ride it a couple times, but you try to really save it because the board's that good. And I had this board actually recently that was my favorite board ever, and I gave it to Timmy to try to reshape it. And I feel like every time I ask for a replica or a same board of the magic board, it ends up never quite being the same. And I feel like every surfer can relate to this as well. But as a shaper, what goes on behind creating a magic board, and how hard is it to recreate it? And technically what goes on behind the scenes?
Well, the blanks all come out of molds, and the molds all have a certain rocker. So once they cut them down the middle and glue in the wooden rocker, it's kind of like your spine. Mm-hmm. You got each side of the foam, and then you got the resin glue that they use, and then they slap the stick in the middle, and it's like your spine. It's different every time. You know what I mean? Because if the stick isn't the same, because the stick's getting cut out manually. I don't think they're using CNC machines to cut out their rocker sticks. Maybe they are. At Clark, they used to not. But you just have to have the rocker that's making that board magic make sure that you get a blank that is the same blank that has the same curve. Because I'll go down to Arctic and Millennium and look at the blanks, and everybody has a different rocker, and even the stock rockers are still different.
What?
A little bit, So
it's never the same.
And then the guy cutting the board off the machine has to let it be,
Yeah.
You can kind of manipulate things, and you just have to know it just has to be done right. And it's cool, like surfboards, like humans, like snowflakes. Every rocker is just a teeny bit different, you know? I mean, I think we're getting closer and closer to consistency, but that's the variable, is that when it starts, there's things that get done that it can change a little bit. And if it changes just enough and then the guy doesn't cut it exact, you know, it's off a little and you feel it. You know,
100%.
you feel a 16th or an 8th
yeah.
inch with the entry and the tail, you know?
The smallest difference you can feel, and I think like especially pro surfers, once they get to a super high level, they could ride a board once, and on the bottom turn they already feel the difference. And I think that's one of the reasons pro surfers go through so many boards nowadays, because they're trying to find like that one perfect one and like looking for that same feeling. And it's super hard to like recreate a board perfectly. But kind of bouncing off of that, I was wondering, in terms of like athletes and surfers that you've worked with, do you have any favorite surfers that you've really enjoyed working with and that you've been able to build a connection with? Because I think about like some of those iconic duos between like the shaper and the surfer, like for example John Florence and Paizel being one of them, where he started shaping for him at a super young age, got to see his full evolution as a surfer, and has been shaping for him since then. And they just have such a close connection, where it's like John can come in and like give him feedback on this thing. He knows exactly what it is, understands every single aspect of John's board and his surfing, and they're able to just bounce off of each other in that way. But yeah, I was wondering if you had any surfers that you share that similar connection with, and how important that is when you're shaping a board for someone.
Yeah, when I first started making Brad's boards, I think I made him 30 boards in 6 months.
Wow.
And it was like, I loved every moment of it, you know. And then we finally got there, and then something happened to where like it was like it didn't work out for the future, you know. And it was such a bummer, but we did get to travel, and it was probably the best year of my life, the most fun I had, you know, because I mean, Brad's hilarious and he's fun to travel with, and he's my idol, and you know, so he was a lot of fun, you know, just to work with him, how the boards evolved. And then Conan came in and I worked with him for a while, and as on the side, I was working with Donovan kind of on and off. He would get Xanadu's, he would get Doc's, you know. He rode for Doc, I think, after he rode for me. And, you know, Donovan was almost more of a friend, you know, than a team rider, you know, because we grew up surfing. I was sponsored by Billabong when I was younger too. I kind of swapped from Quick to Billabong and then back to Quick. And, you know, so I'm friends with Bob Hurley and some of the guys at Billabong. But so I helped Donovan get sponsored by Billabong when he was, I think, 13. You know, I was like, he was the only guy that put clear tape over his Billabong stickers. It was so cool. You know, like.
Oh, what does that mean?
I don't know. He was like, you got to ask him. Got to have him on the show sometime.
That's true.
You know?
That's true.
I think it's just because he didn't want them falling off or whatever. You know?
Okay.
This is cool.
Yeah.
He was he knew what he wanted. He worked hard as a surfer. He got a ton of good photos. He was super talented. He rode for Cooney before me, and Kevin is like an amazing shaper. I mean, he's one of those guys that kind of got swept, you know, but he's coming back, and hopefully he'll be able to make some boards for Don and his kids, and just more pros, you know.
Yeah. How important was it, like, getting photos in the magazine back in the day?
Well, if you could get one, if you could do a turn and get a photo, you know, it was a great feeling, you know, because Quiksilver and or whoever you were riding for, that's where you get photo incentive and get paid, you know.
Oh, you get paid doing it too.
Yeah. So photos were a huge thing, and like Flame at Salt Creek and Mike Moyer in Newport and all the famous photographers, you know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rad books out there, you know.
What do you think happened to, you know, surfing magazines, and do you think they'll be making a comeback?
I don't know. I'm working with the Surf West Coast magazine, and it's kind of a newsprint mag, but George, the guy that ran Breakout magazine, he knows what he's doing. And Guy Motil is there, the legendary surf magazine photographer. He ran Longboard magazine and stuff. So I'm going to help them hopefully sell ads and get more traction, you know, and so hopefully, you know, there will be more magazine stuff, you know, because the online thing, what happens if our grid goes down?
That's kind of what I was thinking.
You know, it's like, what do you know, my phone's been dying a lot too. You know? I mean, I know that there's always going to be, this, but like they say, 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah.
It's like, this is cool too. Magazines, I like looking at pictures,
Yeah.
100%.
and reading,
100%. I feel like
I love what youth magazine's doing. They're just bringing it back.
Yeah, I think that thing's nice.
yeah.
Can you kind of explain the process? Like, so you would get a photo in the mag, but would you have to like buy that magazine and then you would like later down the line like, oh, I'm in the magazine. Like, this is so crazy. Or was it like,
Well, the cool thing was
I'm
the
gonna
magazines were in the stores, in the liquor stores, everywhere.
Wow.
So I mean,
Oh,
I guess
cool.
that's kind of how online is.
but is it, or was it like, oh, I know I'm going to be in this edition, in this version of this magazine?
Yeah, usually you would
would
find
know.
out.
Oh,
See, that
okay.
was before digital photography. You had to slide, they had to make it, print it, and then look at it, and then
Wow.
choose it. It wasn't quick like it is now. It took time. So you were always kind of like, once the first time you saw the mag, it was like a Christmas tree present,
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
cool.
so cool because nowadays we're just like, someone like Cole Rothman just the other day got like an insane barrel yesterday
Yeah,
at
I
Pike,
know, yesterday.
right? And 2 seconds after that barrel, it was blowing up
Yeah,
on social
yeah.
media. So I
Him
bet
and-
that's such a
yeah.
different feeling, having to wait to see if you were in the mag, right?
Well, I'm sure that will be in all kinds of mags,
Oh yeah.
Definitely, but yeah, it's super interesting to see even just like how surf culture has changed, like in tandem with social media and with phones and technology, where it's like everything's so short and condensed. It's all about like clickbait and like making that like quick reel, which is ironic that we say that because we definitely play into that as well when we're posting reels on our social media. But it's just super interesting to see like surfers aren't saving their best clips anymore for the movies, and you don't even see that many surf movies being made the way they used to be anymore. Now it's like surf clips are all being posted on Instagram and social media. So
it's not like it used to be.
it's definitely not like it used to be.
And that's cool. You guys are young and you're smart, and maybe you guys can do surf movies too.
Yeah.
Tied into this,
Yeah, you never know where this could take us.
I mean,
right?
exactly. It's
Yeah.
a little ship. Everybody's dreams come true, and
Yeah.
The surf
Why
community is like a very unique space, like I was saying earlier. How do you view localism? Because I know like Lowers is pretty localized, and you go out there and you never seem to have a problem. You're like always positive, always smiling, and you're always on like the best set. So like you do it in a positive way. How can we bring back localism and make it like almost like a positive thing?
well, it's so crowded. It's almost like an airport down there because it's just so crowded.
LAX.
Every day is like an airport,
Yeah.
But I know that locals, I mean, everybody wants to have a spot that's theirs, right?
Yeah.
But, there's no such thing, It's like God's place, and we're just here, and I think we're meant to travel, So I think for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? So if you put off a good vibe in the water, you're going to receive that back. If you put off a selfish vibe in the water, you're going to receive that back, kind of,
Yeah.
And there's just that fine line between, knowing where to sit and how to get the waves, and then trying to share them along the way,
Yeah. Do you just kind of because I know how you are at Lowers, but is that kind of like the vibe that you bring at every surf spot you go to?
Well, I've kind of learned, that when I get eggy, I feel eggy and it ruins my session,
Completely.
Yeah, 100%. I remember Xavier and I were surfing up in Slow a couple weeks ago, and we paddled out at this spot that's like more localized. I don't know if you want to say where it was.
But no, it's hard. Yeah, if people are rude to you,
Yeah.
it's hard to not be rude back.
Yeah.
But
Not even like it's sometimes you're not even being rude back.
Yeah.
You're just trying to be
I know,
relaxed
I
and
know.
chill, and it's funny because it's not even like the best surfers are ever the ones
yeah, I know.
being.
Yeah, it's
Like-
usually the guys that are trying to impress the surfers or whatever.
Yeah,
That's what it
100%.
feels like.
Xavier and I paddled out, and we both paddled out together, and it was at Hazards. And then this guy, after we went in, came and yelled at us and was like, "You can't come down here with your girlfriend." As I'm like standing there, like, you got to come down here alone. And like the whole thing was just like, being
A little sexist.
super eggy, and like the guy could barely do a bottom turn.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
come
yeah,
on, like
yeah.
we were being super respectful.
Yeah.
I think you pissed him off because
Part
you're
of the reason
surfing
why-
better than all the guys
Yeah,
out
I know,
there.
I know. With a big smile, just shh.
The funny thing is we show up with the biggest smiles because the waves are pumping, and
Yeah.
that just I don't understand. I still can never wrap my head around it, but like that just pissed them off even more. Like I just can't. I can't wrap my head around that.
Yeah, I mean, people do, if it's their spot, you got to just tread lightly and, wear a dark colored suit and just kind of paddle out at different times and
Definitely.
maybe bring a local with you.
Yeah.
That's kind of the smart way.
Well, I was living up there for 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
It's
you know
funny.
how
I still get yelled at to this day.
Yeah. They're
Yeah.
like, you're from OC. There's spots up there that I won't even go. Like I've been to Lanada Bay that left, and I remember I'd put my wetsuit on in the car and guys are like throwing rocks at me. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. And then I made boards for some of the guys and, it's just that way there. So I don't go there, I'm glad that it's the real localized spot there,
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm not into the hazard burgery right thing.
Yeah, I was going
like
to
the
say,
left,
you said Lunada Bay left. I was like,
No,
well,
I
I've
know,
never
but
heard of the
yeah.
left.
It's just, that's just part of the deal. You got to deal with the angry locals,
Yeah, definitely.
Either get one of them and make them your friend or just go down the beach further,
Yeah, for sure. But it feels like there's been, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like there's just been more and more surfers in the water. I don't know if there's just more surfers in general, but at least I live in LA and I paddle out at Topanga or Malibu and it's a zoo like every single day. Like I was surfing Topanga a couple weeks ago and I remember 4 out of like the 10 waves I caught in that session, I had like a wave storm dropping on me, almost getting hit in the head, like catching it with like my hands, and that's just become like a normal thing at Topanga, just people dropping in left and right. Yeah.
People don't know. Learning, we know, hey, who's on the wave, where the peak is, and some guys are just going, I'm going.
It's so funny because it's either you go out and it's just like two extremes, which is never a good thing. It's either extreme localism or you see like extremely like disrespect almost, and we just need to find that middle ground.
Yeah.
And how do you think we can find that middle ground?
Well, I think it realistically, it's not communication. First off. Second off, I think that every town and every city should put a eco-friendly reef, sandbar, whatever it is. And then that's the spot and and then maybe have another backup one for tourists,
Yeah.
And then everybody kind of say, hey, I want to go surf that wave and I'll surf that wave. And if they're perfect waves, doesn't really matter where you're from. You just get to go surf a better wave, So, like skate parks. When I was a kid, it was illegal to skateboard.
Wow.
And now they put skate parks everywhere.
What?
It used to be illegal to skateboard.
It used to be illegal to skate places. There's no parks.
Wow.
So now, what's safer than skateboarding? Surfing. And probably healthier too.
Yeah.
Because you're not getting, I mean
look at
you're in
Kelly
the water.
Slater.
It's, so I think hopefully that's our hope is the people and the guys my age and the people that have made it in the surf industry, those guys can get more involved with the city and the mayors and whatever and make,
Yeah, I think education, like you probably learn from people like telling you like in the water, like it might have been like a little aggressive, but nowadays there's no communication. What kind of difference do you see like nowadays, like for like surf etiquette? Like how do people get that nowadays versus like back in the day?
Well, I think they learn from people yelling at them.
Right?
Yeah.
Like back in the day,
just
you
like,
see it
or getting hurt, getting cut,
Yeah.
from a fin or a nose or, a big old ding.
Yeah.
And nowadays, if you were to do that to someone, you are bad, bad vibes.
Yeah.
Like get out, like what do you do?
Just the people have to learn, like, hey, just to respect the people that are better than you, and try to stay out of their way and try to split the wave with them,
Yeah.
And then as you progress, hopefully people give you more waves and give you more respect.
No, that's at least how it went down at Topanga. I remember I used to paddle out there when I was like 11, 12, and I would catch one wave a session.
Yeah.
Not even kidding. My mom would sit on the beach, set an hour timer, let me surf for an hour. She'd sit on the beach sending emails. The minute that 1 hour timer went off, she'd be standing on the beach yelling, her arms in the air like this.
Yeah, I haven't caught a wave yet.
Everyone who knows me knows that that's my mom, because I remember I was at a QS event in Barbados once, and there's this big rock, and she went onto the rock in front of the whole QS lineup, screaming on the rock, going, Lily, like waving her arms like crazy, and everyone was like, Lily, is that your mom? I think she's calling you to go in.
Did she surf? Did she?
No, she doesn't surf. But yeah.
When she starts, that'll change. You'll be on the beach yelling.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's super funny. I remember surfing Topanga, I'd catch one wave a session, and definitely, like, to your point, like, the better I got, the more waves I got in the lineup, and now I, like, have mutual respect between me and the locals, and they'll give me, like, good set waves and things like that. But when I first started surfing there, I didn't catch anything. Yeah, it was like bones. I would get nothing. So, but I actually was wondering. I was reading this story recently, or listening to the story recently about how Paizel refused to shape boards for Jordy Smith, because he knew that like Jordy was a competitor to John, and I was just wondering like, what are your thoughts on that and on like the whole like shaping culture around like different athletes and things like that?
Well, Jordy's dad is an amazing shaper, so I don't think he needs him, But maybe he thought he just wanted to try him.
Yeah.
Well,
and
to give it more context, it was just for Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I
And he's
know
the local
Decorum
shaper
makes
there,
everybody's boards over there,
Yeah.
and he's such a legend and such a rad, humble human. And, so I get it. It's cool to try different things.
Yeah.
See, how is it different? Where, but that's funny that he would do that.
Yeah, and I remember his manager, Jordy's manager, ended up going and ordering 3 boards from Paizel, pretending to be someone else. And then Jordy was writing the boards and stickered them up to show it wasn't Paizel, but Paizel saw and like immediately knew. He was walking up the beach, saw Jordy, and immediately knew, just looking at the rocker, looking at his board, knew it was one of his boards.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was wondering, kind of bouncing off of that, like if you see someone riding like your board or even just looking at the rocker, do you know immediately that it's one of your boards? And like, what's your signature, I guess? Because I know every single surfer or shaper shapes boards differently.
Well, I just was there when boards went from 1 3/4 tail rocker to 2.5. Kelly and Kalani and Rusty and Channel Islands, Almeric, they went all the way, I think, to 3 inches of tail rocker. And Kelly has some iconic photos on those boards. They really did amazing, like, turns in the pocket, but they would release and they wouldn't kind of drive so much down the line. They were more top to bottom, So I feel that I was grateful because I kind of was able to make a lot of boards at that time that were really, really good, that had the drive and the release,
Yeah.
But nowadays, some of the blanks, and have evolved, and a lot of people with the machine, you can kind of digitize and scan boards and kind of steal ideas from other people.
Yeah, that's what I see a lot of, is like someone will like want to ride a board that, say like John's riding a certain model and someone wants to ride that model, they'll just order it and then bring it to their shaper and have them.
That's kind of what
just make a replica of it. Like, hey, can you copy this? Can you make the same as this?
So I think a lot of the bigger shapers that are popular are making a great living. You have a top 10 guy or a top
I would think
20
so.
guy. Yeah, you've got that global kind of recognition, and you're getting a lot of orders.
What do you think it takes to like make a good? How many boards you have to sell a year basically to make a good living off of shaping?
Just depends on your overhead.
Right. So like, I mean, most boards nowadays. I mean, when I started surfing, boards were like $300 to $400. Now they're like $700 to $1,000.
Yeah.
So like a $700 board. How many boards do you have to sell to make a good living? It's like.
Well, the glass job's half that.
Really?
Yeah. Epoxy's more expensive.
How much does it cost to glass and epoxy?
I think, it's between $300 and $400 for just the glass.
Wow.
And
What caused such a
poly glass
big...
jobs? Ever since COVID, poly glass jobs. I mean, those guys work so hard and they're underpaid. Glass shops barely make enough to stay in business. Even busy ones, like Pure Glass. Those guys work hard and they do great work. I've been working a little bit with Bennett at RS Resin Services. I saw his boards in there.
Oh, cool.
Jack Sykes and all the legends over there, Greg and Steve and I'm just stoked to. There's a lot of quality driven people out there, and there's plenty of places to do it. So to get your boards classed.
And those guys.
But it is expensive, and making a living. Hey, I work so I can surf and be with my daughter and family and loved ones, and play golf.
At the end of the day, that's all that kind of matters, right?
Yeah.
Because
time is more precious than money.
100%. Your positivity, I will say, is like contagious. Where does that come from, and how do you maintain it so consistently?
Well, I've gotten older, and hopefully as you get older, you hopefully get wiser, Mm-hmm. And I realize that if I'm not in a positive headspace, I'm in a negative headspace, and you gotta get those negative things off, Yeah. And it's impossible to be positive all the time.
Yeah.
But it really helps to do your best and to stay there,
And what would you tell like someone listening how they could maybe stay positive and look for ways to.
I guess have faith. That there is a God and He wants you to be where you're at, and what comes around goes around, and love one another as I first love you. And instead of always like trying to look at finding something bad with somebody, focus on the positives.
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect. But
Yeah, I love how you're always in good spirit. What does surfing mean to you, like beyond the sport? Is it spiritual, therapeutic, or is it something else?
it's kind of like my yoga, I guess. I mean,
Yeah.
I do a little bit of the yoga stretching because it's so good for your body to strengthen where you are weak and to stretch where you're tight and all that stuff. But I mean, I think God gave us waves for a reason, and I'm grateful. I don't know. I just hope and pray every day, and however it's supposed to work,
Yeah.
the
Have faith
rapture
and not knowing,
and
but
the
knowing.
tribulation, and I don't know when and where, how things are. Everybody has a different way of interpreting Revelation and stuff, but I just keep hoping and praying. That's all I do.
Mm-hmm. What advice would you give to the younger generation of surfing or surfers navigating through life and the lineup, I guess?
Just try to stay positive, have fun, spread goodness, and it'll come back to you.
Thank you for sharing your insights and experiences with us. To our listeners, make sure to follow Cordell's work and keep up with his latest projects. Cordell, where can they find you and follow your story?
My Instagram. I'm working on my website right now with a couple of my friends, so that'll be up soon.
Yeah.
But
Is it Cordell_surfboards?
Yeah.
Right.
Cordell_surfboards.
Okay, great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Cordell.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
problem, you guys.
Stay
Thanks. I'm
tuned.
Stoked that you guys wanted me.
Yeah.
Yeah, stoked to have you on the show.
Yeah.
Well, stay tuned for our next episode, and thank you for listening.